Hello, and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Catherine Haleko, and I'm here with Terry Morrow.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Terry and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics, because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. So this week, we are continuing with our watch of the second season of Veronica Mars with the episode Ahoy, Mateys! And we're also continuing with World of Dance, finally arriving at the semifinals, at the actual stage instead of the warehouse. And they have these like high-tech scoring iPads instead of like blinged pens and notebooks.
Fancy.
Yes.
And yet.
And yet it still has the one fundamental problem, which we will get to.
Okay. Technology should have a way around that, I think, but.
Yeah, so we had wondered if they were going to keep the junior division and the upper division separate once they got to this point. And the answer is no. No. So therefore, they started off with two of the younger groups, with young cast and with little tiny Savannah.
Yes.
And they both did really well, but then the third performance was by Jefferson and Adrianita, which are the ballroom couple from, I believe, Colombia.
Right.
And they kind of outscored the other ones by fairly significant amounts.
Yes. So there goes Savannah. They didn't, she had a game smile on her face the last time they showed her, and so good for her.
And then they hustled her away.
Yes.
Then she was seen no more. Although they applauded her. And then Groovement, another younger division team, performed, and they were not as good as young cast. And they did this sort of like war scene, and they had these like cargo pants and lots of dirt and grime.
Yeah, that was a miscalculation, I think.
Yeah, and they started with like too long of a pause, like a set piece beginning without starting to move.
Yes.
So they were out as soon as they got scored. And then we had Curtis, the contemporary guy.
Right.
Also an upper division person. And he scored the same as Savannah, so he was goodbye as soon as.
Yeah, they were talking him up so much. I thought, well, here you go. He's going to knock somebody out. And then it was sort of a meh score. So, sort of a good job score and not a whoa, you're the best score.
Right. Although Derek said, "Are you free this summer?" Like implying that he wanted to hire him. This was in the before time, so whatever job he might have hired him for, I'm sure did not happen. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry, man.
That's too bad, Curtis. So then the final act was Géométrie Variable.
Yeah.
And they were great. I enjoyed them quite a bit. They managed to walk that line of do what we like, but also do something different.
Yeah, sure.
You didn't care for the umbrella situation.
It was fine. The whole structure of the thing was set up to annoy me. That you put these kids on first, and you give them the high enough score that they have to sit there the entire time sweating out whether they're going to be in it or not.
Right.
And then with the very last act, you knock them out. And then you have a camera in the back showing them crying. This is not necessary. No part of this was necessary.
Right.
You could have eliminated them earlier. You could have given them some space. You didn't have to show them crying. What the heck is wrong with these producers? That is not a good viewing experience. No. Even if you felt like
Géométrie Variable
was better, it still stinks to have them knock out the kids.
Right.
There are more humane ways to do this, people. I also wonder whether if
Géométrie Variable
went first and the young cast went last, if it would have been the same. Because I felt like they were terrific.
Young cast.
But there's always going to be a recency bias in scoring.
Yes.
And you're always going to be tempted to give the last act the highest score.
Yeah, no, you never want to go first in anything like this.
Yeah. In the first place, who put those poor kids first? These kids have been through. They didn't get picked first, so they had the callbacks, and then they lost in the duel, then they had the
redemption. And
now they're finally here, and then you make them sit through 5 other acts, and then they lose.
Right.
And you show them being upset about it. I was just so ticked off by that.
And they were really great. Like they did
were.
Bohemian Rhapsody and really fun. They had these great suits on and they looked really sharp and the suits like added to the performance, I thought.
Yes, I think that was the best they've done by far, and they picked the best, flashiest act for the semifinals. They did everything right. Mm-hmm. And I think they were hard done by.
Yeah, they were very sad.
It's also unfortunate that those 3 guys...
Géométrie variable.
They're very fun to watch. They're very good. There's a certain smugness to them, I feel. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just because they're French. I don't know. It's like, yeah, we're just going to come out here and we're going to break the kids' hearts. Sure. Here's our umbrella. So it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And while acknowledging that the 2 top dancers were excellent acts, totally fine with them being the picks in theory. Mm-hmm. But in practice, wow, was that rough.
Yeah.
I was really ticked off. And I felt terrible for those kids to make them sit there for once they got into the second place. That's not nice.
Right. There were
so many ways to get around that.
Right.
Mm. So anyway, who will be breaking my heart next week?
I know. I can't remember.
Be kind to contortionist girl, or I will be unhappy.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yes. Don't break her heart with a camera in her face, please.
If you must break her heart, please do it off screen.
It seems to me so simple. Not to show crying children.
This is what we keep saying.
When you get the television producer's handbook, it's like page 1 is no crying children, right? That's like a first grade of a TV producer's education. Nobody wants to see crying children. No. Don't kick dogs. Don't let children cry.
There you go.
There are certain rules that are hard and fast. Anyway, I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're happy they got as far as they did. They got themselves some nice publicity, but I would have been happy to see them go on. And I also feel like, how can you put adults against children?
Yeah, that's the whole weirdness of this. You know, all along, I think they've been not competing against each other up until this point, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even though they might have shown each other during the same broadcast, the same episode, they weren't which I don't think they even did. But anyway, if they had, they were in their own division. But now all bets are off, and that doesn't seem right.
It's just weird. I think it's just weird. I don't understand why they're doing this way. But if we watch this show again, I'm going to make a spreadsheet, because I feel like there's people we saw in the auditions that went through that we never saw again. I'm on a constant, well, wasn't there some other person? But it's hard to remember. Well, maybe they were in the auditions, but they didn't get, they don't go through, and I just misremembered it or something. I feel like there were more people, and then all of a sudden we were down to 12, and then all of a sudden we were down to 6 in each division, and it seems... I'm confused, but I am old and easily befuddled, and, crying children make me upset. So anyway, next week we shall see what happens with the remaining 6. Right. Producers, I beg of you. And this isn't even live, so it's not like, well, we didn't want to show the crying children, but it was live. What can we do? It's been sitting someplace for months.
Right.
Edit it out. Think better of it.
Yeah, you could have been like, you know what? We have time. Let's go back.
Yes. Calm down, Grandma Morrow. It's fine. No children were harmed in the making of this program.
All right. Well, speaking of crying children, named Veronica Mars.
Oh, and children being harmed.
It wasn't the babysitting children that happened last time. But this week on Veronica Mars, we had like one of the school bus kids who had died figured into it.
Mm-hmm.
Duncan's having disturbing dreams about Meg.
Yes.
Veronica almost gets a face tattoo from one of the fighting Fitzpatricks who she blithely followed into a very sketchy bar.
Girl, can we talk? I think you've got some problems, honey. I think that anybody watching this show is going, what are you doing? Why are you following him? Are you crazy? Come on, honey. We know better. You know better.
Thank goodness Logan had her back, even though she was very upset.
Yes.
By the fact that he had a gun, which he was like, oh yeah, Mr. Casablancas gave
Yes,
it
well,
to
at least
me.
we got a little payoff to Mr. Casablancas taking them to the shooting range. I thought the payoff was going to be he was going to shoot at Logan for, fooling around with his wife, but apparently he just gave him something. So that was very satisfying, and I was a little, when Veronica was mad at him, I'm like, well, first, could you say thank you for, like, saving me from a bad tattoo at the very least?
Yeah.
I think there's a time for the lecture about having a firearm when you're on probation, or when you're on parole. What is he on?
Who knows? He's awaiting trial, right?
When you're awaiting trial. First, it's going to be, oh my goodness, thank goodness you were there. Thank goodness you had a weapon and you could scare them away and get me out of there. How can I ever repay you? Now, let's talk about you
And
not
hang
getting
on
in
a
trouble.
second.
Yes. Oh dear. And then, oh my goodness, the scene where Logan was getting roughed up, and
Right.
this kid has enough trauma. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness, I know. And I was a little confused by him talking to Weevil afterwards, but I guess I learned from the podcast, from the Veronica Mars Investigations podcast, that he had grabbed one of the phones of one of the people who had who grabbed him and called them, and called Weevil from that phone.
I think that was the phone that they were using throughout the torture to get instructions.
Right.
And then he used the thing to call back the number that was called or something like that.
Right. So then he knew that Weevil had been the one relaying the instructions. But I was so confused, and I thought Logan and Weevil had somehow planned it.
Oh.
And so then when he called Weevil, it was like, because Weevil's like, is it done? And yeah. So I didn't understand.
Yeah, I can see where you would have thought that. I sort of wondered if maybe one of the guys who was doing the thing to Logan, if they had planned it to set up Weevil as the one and maybe he really wasn't the one in charge.
Mm-hmm.
But they had, because they let him take the phone, I guess they're not the smartest bikers in the bunch, but still, how did he get their phone? So
right,
it seemed like maybe they might have let him have it in such a way that then it could point back to Weevil, because apparently somebody in Weevil's organization is, going behind his back and doing stuff.
Right.
So
yes,
maybe it was to frame him. I don't know. Boys, can't we just get along?
Mm-hmm.
I so enjoyed that one episode when you were friends. You used to be friends a long time ago.
That's right. A long time ago, you used to be friends, Logan and Weevil.
Yes.
Remember?
But you're thinking of each other lately way too much. It's not. But that scene was very intense and very unpleasant. Even though I was pretty sure they weren't actually going to shoot any of his body parts off.
Yes.
But still, so.
It was still hard to watch.
And unpleasant.
Along with Veronica and the needle, the tattoo needle menacing her face.
Excellent fear and panic acting by both Kristen Bell and Jason Dohring.
Yes.
A+ for making me feel like you were in actual peril, even though I was pretty sure that Veronica Mars wasn't going to go through the rest of the series with a clover on her cheek. So.
Which I'm sure would get infected and, be really extra disgusting.
It wasn't going to be Veronica Mars with hepatitis, season 3. But another thing I wondered about this episode, it seemed like possibly the actor who plays Duncan was someplace else, because I don't think he was ever in the same frame with anybody else.
Oh, only Meg.
Only Meg. And even then, it was sort of a weird Meg that it looked like they made just of CGI'd her face on somebody else's body.
Well, and there was a dream where where Veronica was in it. Yeah. And then wasn't there a scene where he woke up and she was there.
It was, but there was something weird about, maybe just because you expected it to be Veronica and then it was Meg, but there was just something weird about the face in that, I thought, too. You know, dreamy-like. But otherwise, I mean, he's laying on the couch while Logan and Veronica talk, but you never see them together. I don't think you ever see them together at school. And he's off on his own having dreams. So did he have an acting job someplace else? And he said, can you just video me, like, in a set that's kind of similar?
Or he had to go take the LSATs.
Yes, maybe. Maybe so. It just seemed like one of those things where you hear a story that an actor, or like on, what was it, The Good Wife, where the two actresses couldn't stand each other, so they were constantly CGIing them together in scenes. It felt like one of those things, like he was just, they had to find ways around him not being there.
Right.
But anyway, I
wish they would have done that with Wallace, because I miss Wallace.
Yes! Wallace! This is a long time to be without Wallace.
It really
I want
is.
Wallace back. What the heck?
Yeah.
But I could do without any more of Duncan's dreams. Thank you very much.
Yeah, pass on that, please.
That boy also needs a therapist.
Mm-hmm. Pronto.
Yes. I think really all of Neptune could use some help.
Yes, for sure.
And not reprogramming camps.
Ooh,
and not scary dudes reprogramming you from cults. But just like some good, solid
psychotherapy. Please.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It would make things so much better.
Agreed.
We did get to see Mac, which is always nice, even though I completely agree with the Veronica Mars Investigations folks that why would she like that radio show? That sounds
I know, that awful radio
completely show. Awful.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was kind of a dead-end plot from the... You thought it was going to be a bus crash, like, moving forward with the bus crash, but really it wasn't, because it was
plot of the week.
Yeah, it was. So, sorry, Marcos. May he rest in peace.
Yeah. Oh, well. It was a case of the week for both Keith and Veronica.
That's right.
So, and in neither case did it end in a particularly interesting way.
Right. So, next week... it will be the 9th episode of Veronica Mars Season 2. It's called My Mother, the Fiend. So, I don't know what that's about.
A plot having to do with a mother, though.
I know.
That's a radical departure.
Right. And it could be, there's several mothers that could be involved. But
not something you get every day on Veronica Mars.
Right. And we'll continue with World of Dance. They're going to have 2 episodes this week, so that we will talk about them next week. Tonight on August 11th, it will be the 2nd episode of the semifinals, but then tomorrow, Wednesday, August 12th, they'll have the finals. So by the time we next discuss this, we will know who the winner is.
That's right. It will be all over and you will have forgotten everything, and we will be here to remind you, hey, remember that show that's done? We're still talking about it.
That's right. So please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes. We have something new for you every weekday. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Bye, Terry.
Bye, Catherine.
Goodbye, everyone.